Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast.
You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And we're back to Albany. We go with us right now, a hardworking Assembly member, Ari Brown. He's up there and he's upset. He's fuming at what took place in Albany today. It's not, I'm not sure if it's white smoke or gray smoke coming out, but he's fuming. So Republican Congressman Ari Brown representing Nassau County, thank you for joining us.
Just an assemblyman. I leave the congressman to Anthony D'Esposito. But thank you.
No, but you're up there, Assemblyman. You're up there in Albany. The Assembly went through a session today. We're talking about anti-Semitism. So what happened?
Right. So we're at that time of year where the Democrats finally decided they'd maybe do some work. So we have committee meetings prior to going into session. And of course, any bill from a Republican, they're going to knock down. So I'm the chair of the local governments committee. I knew how to handle that one, but I was in the education committee, and one of my colleagues, Matt Slater, who doesn't sit on the education committee, had his bill 4758A, which updates the definition of anti-Semitism under the education law to match the IHRA. And of course, the chairman, who happens to be a nice guy, I like him, said, no, we're going to put a hold on that. Most of the time, people just, take that and just, don't say anything. But I said, Chairman, question. I said, why is there a hold? Well, we're rejecting it because they believe the interpretation of the Civil Rights Act should be handled by Washington. And the ACLU had some concerns. So I pulled the My Cousin Vinny line. I said, you can tell us, really. They know why you're really holding it. Just say it, because it's Jewish and it's because, it has to do with anti-Semitism. And I asked him, when he first gave his explanation, I actually said to him, I didn't understand a single word that you said. Nothing. It was just a bunch of garbage, because they have like these 10-year-old kids who are their assistants advising them. And I'm sure none of them are thrilled to do anything for a Republican, let alone a Jew. He gave his explanation. Well, we still don't like the wording. So I responded, Chairman, with respect, tell me which wording you don't like about this. We'll get back to you. I said, no, you're the chairman of education. Let me hear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that says it all. We're supposed to be nice. We're supposed to be polite. And I'm always known to be a gentleman. But it comes a point where, they'll have menstrual hygiene day lauded as the great piece of legislation. But to protect the Jew, that they don't want to know anything about.
Just to tell our audience exactly what is transpiring, the IRHA refers to a definition that's standard. It's dealing with what the Holocaust is. The National Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, they've defined anti-Semitism as such. Anti-Semitism, a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community, institutions, and religious facilities. So what's so bad about this definition? I'm trying to get a handle on this.
What's so bad about it? It came from a Republican, and it's something that'll help the Jewish people. And that is the mantra of what goes on. And what do I mean by that? I have now 8 bills, possibly 9 bills that you can say are related to protecting the Jewish people and anti-Semitism. Of course, every Christian signs on to my bill. That, of course, I'd like my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to start signing on to my bills as well. And we've had this discussion before, though I have respect for the rabbinate. They can't always go where the money is. Yes, I'm the only Republican, yarmulke-wearing Republican in state legislative history, but don't punish me for that. Don't be embarrassed that I'm the only one that does the right thing. Do the right thing also, I say to the rabbis, and have some balls and stand up and do what's right. So what we talked about, my bills, not only did they not come to the floor, I have to struggle and argue to get bill numbers. You see, staff is made up of children, and the children on the other side of the aisle, they're part of the DSA, the socialists, hatred for our country. Not all of them. A lot of them are nice, but a lot of them have this natural hatred for Republicans, certainly the Jewish people, and they're going to hold it and punish the Jewish people and the Republican wherever possible.
Now, this would affect colleges and universities to make it easier to prosecute anti-Semitism on campus, correct?
To a degree. Mm-hmm.
Now, according to the New York Post article, nice picture, by the way, of you in the New York Post. According to the New York Post article, they mentioned that Assemblyman Sam Berger, who's a Democrat of Queens, has a similar piece of legislation which would apply to all state agencies, including SUNY. Have you spoken to him, or he's opposed to your bill?
We all try to stay together as much as possible. Sam had a bill in a press conference on the staircase, and I stood with him. I don't remember which bill it was exactly. We try to stick together for the most part, but I'd like my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, whether it's a yarmulke or not yarmulke, to be a little more bold in their wording. We can't thank people. Thank you for kicking me in the head and not moving my bill forward. Anything to do. I give this example, and I think they'll explain it best. A number of years ago, when now Congressman Mike Lawler was an assemblyman, he put up on the floor a resolution. Wasn't even a bill. End Jew Hatred Day. The controversy that came out, End Jew Hatred Day. What if it was End Black Hatred Day? We'd have discussions endlessly lauding that, and rightfully so, but not for a Jew. Jewish blood has always been cheap, and no more so than in state legislature.
Now tell me, most people listening to us right now, watching us on YouTube, Ari, have no idea that this is Jewish American Heritage Month or American Jewish Heritage Month. I'm not sure how they rephrase. I'm not sure if we're Jewish American Jews, right? Depends on the organization and the literature that I read. So most Jews don't know this is our Heritage Month. You would think this is kind of legislation that should be celebrated during this month. Is there any celebration of any kind in the Assembly or New York City regarding Jewish Heritage Month? I know the mayor's having a reception at the end of the month.
So I'm glad. So we have a resolution by Nili Razik about celebrating Israel, the 77th birthday of Israel's independence. Everybody voted for it except for the DSA. Mandami specifically would not vote for it. And I heard one of his fellow DSA Democrat socialists put up a bill that didn't come to the floor, the Palestinian version of it. So you ask, why does this happen? Because unfortunately, leadership in the Democrat Party exclusively is scared, like little girls. They're afraid of being primaried. You could be the most liberal Democrat. It's still not liberal enough for the Democrat socialists like Mandami and the rest of that clan. If you don't say, I hate America and kill the Jews, you're out. So they're fearful of being primaried, and many of the Democrats are primaried. So they have to cower in fear.
You mentioned Mandami. He has a good shot of becoming mayor, or at least become the nominee, if Andrew Cuomo doesn't get 50% of the vote on June 24th.
Maybe that'll be good. We'll get Curtis Sliwa, hopefully will then be a shoo-in. No better friend to Israel than our friend Curtis Sliwa. Let me tell you.
Curtis is terrific. He's wonderful.
He just stands up and does what's right. If only people in New York would wake up.
But I've spoken to people who've told me that if Mandami gets a good percentage, or if he ends up becoming the Democratic nominee, whether he wins or loses, it's bad for New York. It spells the end of Jewish political power in New York if that happens. Your perspective.
I couldn't tell you if it ends the power, but I'll tell you it'll be the Jewish vote that puts Mandami in if that happens. We're the only group in the world that has such a self-loathing and self-hatred. It's hard for me to understand. I'm a Long Island boy. I was always a Republican. I didn't come from Brooklyn and turn into a Republican. I always believed, in the American dream, the American spirit. My father's family's been here for longer than George Washington. My mother's family. Italy. My mother's from Italy and my grandmother's from Italy. But nevertheless, when my mother came from Italy, they wanted to be Americans. That's very foreign to a lot of Jews who came here from America, especially the ones from Brooklyn and Queens. It's just what it is. And if he's going to get in Mandami, it'll be on the heels of the liberal Jewish vote, or whatever deal the Hasidic community may make for that also.
I don't think the Hasidic community is going to end up voting for Mandami.
I'm glad to hear that. You saw what happened in the last election, how big seats were swayed because of simple deals for a Hatzalah vehicle or whatever it was,
Well, it's not a presidential plane.
What? I'm sorry?
It's not a presidential plane. But first of all, Mandami's free lunch, free breakfast, free dinner. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody has to pay for it.
Right out of the Soros, Barack Obama playbook, the free meal.
Now, how is it in Long Island? One of my big issues, Ari, is that we have to have more people registered to vote, more people voting. And how do we do that? Because I see the numbers, and It's just a lot of us are not voting.
I mean, Nassau County, I mean, who does better, than Nassau County? I mean, we come out very strong Republican. Even here, my district is heavily Democrat. But you know what? I like I said it before, Long Islanders are very different. People from Queens and Brooklyn don't understand. We stick together. Like, I have a love for my Long Beach community, and the other way around also. Why? Because we look out for each other, for our communities first. We put the politics aside, and we do what's good for suburbia. We don't like these city-centric politics, like putting skyscrapers in our backyard. So we stick together. As far as voting enrollment, I can't tell you what happens in New York City because there's nothing normal in New York City. Island, we get out to vote big time, especially in my numbers.
Now, the last time we had you on, by the way, we spoke about the windmills they were going to put into the water, and that was going to be killed. It seems like it's back in the air again.
Yeah, so it's back. It's not back. We're trying to get some clarity on that. I'm assuming this is a big chess game that President Trump has some great ideas. From what I understand, he made an agreement with Hochul, but I don't know if that's certain. Possibly on opening up the gas pipeline. We're certainly good for the American economy, but we have to do what's good for Long Island and Long Beach. This will be disastrous for our communities. You might imagine sitting out on the beach in Long Beach and seeing these skyscrapers, Chrysler building-sized windmills looking right in our face.
But it's also going to hurt the environment too.
Hurt the environment. Today's Post did an article about how it's going to devastate the marine life. Big article on that. Whales washing ashore, and they explain why. They're right now dumping millions of pounds of gravel into the earth. They're going to be slamming pilings into the seafloor, how it's going to disrupt the sonar. It's amazing. When you and I were kids, remember all the hippies, save the whales, save the whales. Now that's out the door. It's what it's like. It's like the Me Too movement. They'll believe women. Of course we should believe women, but it's always, remember, Me Too, except if you're a Jew, after October 7th. The same thing with this. The liberals only do what's good for them at the moment. There is no real ideology. That's why it's a failed ideology. Unfortunately, we have a Democrat legislature and leaders who are scared, like I said, like little girls of the DSA who are promoting these things.
But this windmill is devastating because you said whales washing up. It's bad for the ecology, for the whole area. So I'm not even sure why it's being brought back to life again. And you have any options except it's the only one that can kill it is the president?
President at this point. We reached out to our colleagues in the federal government for some more clarity on how to move forward. This just happened yesterday. So we're trying to get a better understanding of what's happening. I'm assuming President Trump has a good plan and that we'll be able to put a stop to all this.
All right, we got to save the whales, right? If they won't do it, we got to save the whales.
Save the whales and our kids in our pocketbooks, because if this thing goes in, our electric bills, which are already crazy high, it's going to be so unaffordable. Every day at state legislature, you have legislators putting in bills to wipe out the economy of New York. Our housing committee, there's never a day that they don't do something to punish landlords. You break into someone's house, live there, have a bill sent there, and you own the place. We'll never be able to get you out. Oh, you want to charge someone rent? She's a nice lady, but the chairperson of the housing committee lives in a $1,400-$1,500 a month luxury apartment in Manhattan, rent control. So of course, they're going to put legislation, to protect that. We had a legislator that didn't get a coupon on it for PC Richards on an appliance a few years ago. So they made a piece of legislation that was something like, well, these coupons for appliance stores are good forever. It's serving. It's
wow, unbelievable. When's your book coming out?
My book, which one?
The one about your lives and what you've seen, seen and heard.
We'll see. Hopefully soon. I got to get a better picture than the cover posted today. So,
Seminary Brown, thank you for being with us. Thank you for speaking out. Hopefully, this anti-Semitism definition will be adopted by New York. Any hopes for that?
I have hopes. You know why? Because we have great leaders like Professor Jeff Lax. You have on the radio Sid Rosenberg. You have Curtis Sliwa. You have Emily Austin. You have many more. Bruce Blakeman. Anthony D'Esposito, all standing up for the Jewish people every single day, and many more colleagues. So I have more than hope. I know we're going to keep on fighting together.
Seminary Brown, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Zev.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.